So this question comes from Kingsley H. My question revolves around picking a professional-looking email address. I see so many younger people still using old email addresses they must have created back when they were younger that they're just not serious at all. Things like stronghenchman123 at gmail.com and rockmusicdude1990 at yahoo.com, etc., etc. These days, with email being used in so many different places, I would have thought people would care more about how their email addresses look to the rest of the world. I often wonder what would be the best and most professional looking email address options when using in a job application, CVs, resumes, and so forth. So this is actually a big thing nowadays. You know, email is one of those things we've been using for well over 2 decades now, and yet people really don't realize how important the email address is. And this is a very serious thing. Like when I go out and I do real business, when Eli goes out and does real business, one of the things I in fact do is I look at email addresses. And I have to say, when I'm doing real business, business, like money is exchanging hands, you know, stuff is going to be done. One of the things that really dissuades me, truly and honestly, is when I see at gmail.com, at yahoo.com, at hotmail.com, at any of that kind of thing.com. If somebody does not have their own unique domain name for their email address, and I'm thinking about doing business with them, it's probably not going to happen. Because one of the things that I figure in the modern world, where domain names cost you $11 per year and email hosting services are like $5 per year or something like that, if you do not have your own domain name, I really do have to question how serious you are about business. And then if you're not serious about business, why the hell am I going to do business with you? You know what I'm saying? So the big thing that I would say with email addresses is you should always have your own domain name. At eliethecomputerguy.com, at bobtheplumber.com, whatever else. It just makes you look more professional. You buy the domain name, you create a little website for yourself, and it just gives you the image of being a step above something, again, like Gmail and Yahoo and all those other kinds of things. The other thing that you have to think about when you're going out there and you're putting your email address out there is that people keep email addresses for a ridiculous amount of time, especially now that everybody uses email. You know, somebody may contact you and they may have met you 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and they figure that that email address is still going to actually work. So if you buy your own domain name so that you have your own email address, you get to keep that no matter what happens. So one of the big problems I've seen in life, especially with the small business folks, is they do things like, it's not even gmail.com or yahoo.com, they do comcast.com or verizon.com, Eli, the computer guy, at comcast.com. Well, the issue is what happens when you dump Comcast services? I have actually had clients who have had to keep internet service even though they hated it. Basically, the modem is sitting in the corner collecting dust because that email address is sitting on all of their business cards, and as soon as they cancel Comcast service, Comcast rightly will delete that email account. So they simply keep paying for it. So what I would say, bar none, go out there and buy your own domain name. When you have your own domain name, then you own that domain name. You can use GoDaddy to run the service. You can use oneandone.com to run the service. If you're an Uber geek, you can set up your own email service to run the service. If you own your domain name, then you own it, so it'll stay with you forever. And I also think it just generally looks professional. When I look at a business card for anybody, I look at a resume, if it shows your particular domain name, I would argue that looks good. Beyond that, then, you know, what do you put in front of the domain name? So, you know, what at eliethecomputerguy.com or geekbraindump.com or whatever else. That is up to you. I mean, what is the most professional there? I think that's a bit in the eye of the beholder. As you guys know, my email address is eli at eliethecomputerguy.com. I would argue keep it simple, especially if it's your own domain name. That's the thing. Like if you're going with Gmail or Yahoo or any of these things, you have to figure out a name that nobody else has. If you own the domain name, then you can just put, you know, whatever this guy's name, you can put Kingsley at kingsleyheart.com. And then it looks professional, it looks good, and it's also something that everybody will remember. So that is something that you guys can think about. I sold that to a couple of families even, where they were pretty large families. They're families with like 6 or 7, people in them. 4 or 5 kids. Plus the mom and dad. And so what they would do is they would actually buy the domain name, and the domain name would be like thehearts.com. So this guy's Kingsley Hart. So you do thehearts.com, and it would be Kingsley at thehearts.com, Mary at thehearts.com, Susie at thehearts.com. So again, you keep the email address. It looks a little more professional. You can keep it short since you own that domain name. That would be what I would argue to go with, and then go from there. So that would be my thought. But definitely in the modern world, I would say buy your own domain name. And then whatever else you do, even if you ignore every other piece of advice I give you here, whatever you do, don't use at Comcast.com or at Verizon.com or at Quest.com or at any. Don't use an email address for an ISP, an internet service provider account on your business. I would say just in general, don't do it, because again, I have seen that. I have seen carpenters. I have seen the tradesmen who work out of their house who put that on their business cards, and again, then they're stuck. They're stuck with a $60 a month payment for internet service they no longer want, because frankly, if they get rid of that internet service, their email address goes away, and that may cost them hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of work every month because people are trying to contact that old email address. So whatever the hell you do, don't use your internet service provider's email account for any kind of business at all, ever.